I saw Emilia Perez, and man, this is literally one of the most overrated films of the entire year. And I watched it before the Golden Globes when I saw that it was nominated for a bunch, but I'd also heard some murmurings on the horizon. And this morning just got all the Oscar nominations, and I am so disappointed that a movie that is so bad and mediocre is getting so many award nominations. And I have some theories about that, but I'm going to get into that later. I'm just going to talk about the actual why and specifics of why this film is not a very good film. First of all, why did this film need to be a musical? So often, they talk about musicals and the justification for musicals, and almost like, I remember hearing, I don't know if this is like a specific quote that someone said, but I've heard this several times of like, you sing when words aren't enough. Like when you're so bursting at the seams with an emotion or something to express that you have to sing. And when I was watching this, I just couldn't understand why it was a musical. It almost felt like, this is kind of my overall criticism of the film, it's this cis, straight, white, male French director that seems, from some of the things I've seen him in, pretty egotistical and just kind of like full of himself and pretentious. And it's like what's there for me when I saw this film, because I was like, and usually really good films or good art is because it's authentic, right? So it's not that this dude has to be trans, or this dude has to be Mexican, or he has to be this to make this good film, but it almost feels like he had this idea of, what would be a really cool concept if this Mexican cartel dude transitioned to being a woman and then had his family, and what if it was a musical? Like, it almost feels like he just had some random idea, like a concept, and then was like, oh, that would be cool. Or even like more so, it even more so came from his mind of like, what's really trending right now? Trans rights. But it's like, why did he want to make this film? What was the purpose for him that he wanted to make this film? Why was he passionate about making this film? And why did he need to make this film? That is something that's been missing for me in almost all of the interviews and the different things I've seen from him, which makes sense of why when I watched this film, it felt really bad and mediocre, and I didn't really connect to the characters or anything, and it felt really surface level. And I'm like, probably because this wasn't the story this dude was meant to tell, and he didn't have it be any sort of collaborative effort of like researching and going to the trans community or even the Mexican community and trying to make this a really authentic portrayal of characters. It just ended up being a bunch of like surface level trans and Mexican stereotypes. And there's also just the general mediocrity of watching it, that other things that just really stood out to me. So anyway, why was it a musical? The songs were so mediocre, and the singing was really mediocre and just not good. And I'm also one of those people that doesn't necessarily think like, I'm like, okay, this person's not the best singer, but wow, they're really perfect for this part. Or wow, you can tell they really are connected to what they're singing, or they really feel something. So it doesn't necessarily have to hit all the right notes, and it makes me feel something. That wasn't there either, though. That wasn't there either, though. Like, almost everyone that was singing in this film had mediocre voices, and there was like no breath support and no, and the songs, I had to look for myself, and I'm like, well, am I being biased against these songs because I don't speak Spanish fluently? I had to like ask myself. And then I was like, no, that I don't think that's necessarily so, because then I started looking for other songs that are in other languages that like hit me, that I really enjoy, that hit me, where even though I don't speak the language, the melody and the words, even though I don't speak that language, stays with me, and it elevates the actual story that it's telling. So Like literally every single song, I was like, oh, this is just like noisy. Or like every single song, I was like, oh, this is so forgettable. This is just noise. Like literally none of the songs I even remember. Like the one of the ones that's nominated for the Oscar is just that like noisy one where it just sounds like she's like growling and being like, ah, da, da, bah, 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 bah. Anyway, so what's there for me about this film is like, I appreciated the attempt. I liked that it was bold, but it really, really missed the mark. And just because something is a good concept or attempts to be bold doesn't equal that we should acknowledge it. The Oscars are supposed to be this prestigious award that is supposed to acknowledge the best of the best in the world. And I saw so many films this year. As anyone who's listening to this podcast knows, I just watch a lot of films. And I saw a lot of films that had really good original songs that still have stuck with me. And this film is nominated for 2 original songs. Anyway, so I appreciated that it tried, but does it need to be acknowledged because it tried? Like, that is just ridiculous to me. I liked that it was a different story. I liked that it had transgender representation, but just because it has representation, if the representation is inauthentic and if the representation feels forced and like someone's just trying to ride a trend to look like they're some sort of ally, should we acknowledge it? Like that is, if the film overall, objectively, is so bad, should it get awards just because of that? And it didn't like fully double down on the musical aspect of it either, or like really any of the various genres that it was attempting to kind of like genre bend and like blur the lines between. It just ended up being blurry and messy, almost like a muck, but not like, whoa, I liked that it raised the issue about all the different people that seemed to disappear by, the cartel in Mexico. But yeah, it was disjointed. It was way too long. Like, I think me and James probably paused it like 3 or 4 times. And I don't have to do that usually when I'm watching a movie at home. I like to like sit and fully watch it. But when I do that, it always points to something for me. It points to like, oh, this is just like really boring. Or like what, like versus, if I'm sitting there and watching the whole thing. I did like getting to see Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez in different types of roles that they don't normally get to play. Another thing that I heard was a big criticism, but it's something that I can't speak to specifically, is that the translation of this film was like absolutely atrocious, and that Selena Gomez's accent has really been criticized. And, one of the things she said in her defense was, I did the best I could. And like, what's there for me is like, well, your best isn't good enough. Like, where's the pride in your craft? Like, where are you not holding yourself to a high level of excellence? This is a professional film. There are so many people that would kill for this kind of opportunity. So it's like, don't take it for granted. Like, you got to push yourself if you want to be taken seriously as a legitimate actress. It's like the amount of vocal coaches you could have got. Like, if I just keep coming back to like mediocre. It feels like there was like the director was not holding himself to a standard of like, this is going to be authentic and this is going to be excellent and I'm going to hire the best of the best. There's so many things that he could have done that could have had that. And I thought the lead actress was great. And I thought that Zoe and her were great. Like great in the sense of like, they acted well, but like not Academy Award worthy nomination well. I'm sorry, from someone as myself, who has studied acting for majority of their life, being emotional and connected and believable is the bare minimum expectation for acting. That's the bare minimum. But for me, when people are nominated for Academy Awards, it's because they do a performance that blows people away, where like it's unrecognizable. Maybe if it's someone who's been around for a lot, you know, it's something that they've never seen them do before, or it's just like so unique and distinct in the character that they developed. Now, you know, part of that you can criticize that it was really weakly written, but I've seen a lot of really weakly written things or mediocre screenplays, but because the actor is extraordinary, they do wonders with it. And so anyway, I just don't get it. And it's like the thing about the musical, I'm going to go back to the musical, is like the musical didn't aid or have anything to do with the story. I had this thought of like, well, maybe if the lead character had always dreamed of becoming a singer, and I think there was like one line about that, but like maybe that, and then like as they transitioned, there could have been more and more music, or their music could have become like, there's so many ideas I've had of how it could have been better. And like, it's like, the thing that makes me mad is like, it just feels like it was this inauthentic trying to like look good or be progressive or like do representation for the sake of representation. And it's like, there are people out there who hate trans people, and or people who just like, you know, have their own bias and aren't willing to like examine it or haven't examined it. And like, if this film had been really, really good, where the characters were really well developed, like it actually could have like changed a heart or two of those people. But it's like, I feel like those people, if they like hear the buzz about this film, start to see this movie, they'll be even more turned off and more evidence for them and their ridiculousness to be like, see, like, this is just, look, they're just getting this film or doing this because they're trans, not because it's good, you know? And I don't want representation for representation's sake. I want authentic representation that's good quality. And I think we all do. So it's like, we can't just ignore and pretend that something's good quality when it's not. And instead of letting male directors who are not going to do any research and not respect something, like maybe he could have just produced the film, and he could have hired Mexican filmmaker or a trans filmmaker, or like had it where all the people on the team creating it could have actually helped make it so good and so authentic. But it's like, this is what happens. This is what inauthentic art looks like. This is what like inauthentic, mediocre, ego-driven art looks like when you don't have certain respect for it, and if you don't have an intention to have something be excellent. So anyways, very, very long-winded. That's that. A couple more things. So I think it was in his Golden Globe speech, the director of Emilia Perez basically said that ultimately the film was about sisterhood, which made me laugh to myself because I always am very sensitive and much more highly critical when I watch a male director or a male writer do something with female leads. And I'm not saying that it can't be done. It definitely has been done. But sometimes it feels so fundamentally inauthentic, almost like they write the story and they're like, you know what? It should be a woman. We should change the lead character from a man to a woman. Then it will be more progressive. Then we're showing Then we're showing women representation. It's like, yeah, but is it authentic? Did you talk to another woman? Did you talk to any women to see if the way that this woman reacts is actually authentic? So from someone who gets so excited about films that have female representation and are female led, and have a sister myself, and sisterhood is a very just strong theme in my life and something that's really important to me, I just thought it was actually ridiculous that he said this, because I actually didn't feel that through the entire film. The Color Purple, the original Color Purple, 1988, one of my favorite films of all time. That is a movie about sisterhood. That is a movie that even if you don't have a sister, it's like, how can you not cry and get moved at the end? And, you know, if you look at it, it's like the actual main lead character of Emilia is not that great of a person, which is why it's been getting a lot of flack about the trans representation. Like, literally, like, gaslights their wife. Never takes responsibility for, like, all the people that they murdered. Just keeps lying, you know, moves them all around for their own gain and all this stuff. But it's like, and then literally Zoe Saldana's character is aiding this person in doing this. So it's like, yeah, maybe sisterhood to a fault, to a disgusting codependent fault. This dynamic of not calling women on their shit, and not standing up for integrity or holding your closest relationships to account. Like, that's not really sisterhood. That's not sisterhood. And I thought it was interesting that since he's been getting a lot of flack from, Mexico and a lot of Mexicans that have just been talking about how stereotypical a lot of the Mexican representation is. I've read this thing, they're like, he apologized. And it's like, he didn't really apologize. Like, let's actually be real. He said something to the effect of, well, I'm sorry you got offended. That's like the lowest, that is like the opposite of an apology. It's actually like the opposite of taking responsibility. It's like when someone says, you share someone your feelings, like, hey, when you said this, I felt this way. And they say, oh, well, I'm sorry you felt that way. There's no actual responsibility for what they said or taking responsibility for how it landed or anything like that. And finally, because like I said, I cannot say enough about this film, and this is the thing that's like so mind-blowing to me. AI was used in this film, and AI was used to enhance the vocal range of the lead actress, Carla, who plays Emilia Perez. The thing that I actually laughed out loud at when I read this is I'm like, their vocals were so bad to begin with and so basic and so not supported with breath and good that I'm like, wait, this is you using AI to enhance this? And this is how bad this sounds? And then the next thought that I had is, why would you not cast someone who could actually fill the range that you wanted? Why would you not cast an actor that actually had the range or was willing to put in the work to have their range match and be something that met the standard of what was required for the role? That's just lazy. That's lazy. That's gross. And then we're rewarding it with all of these rewards. We're rewarding it. So, and it's funny, The Brutalist also used AI. And, The Brutalist and Emilia Perez, to my knowledge, are the top two leading most nominations contenders. And there's actually this kind of like conspiracy theory, or this, it's not really a conspiracy theory. It's more of like, I don't know if it's how intentional it is, but how much Hollywood is pushing to have AI be this like normalized thing, and what a slippery slope it becomes if we're starting to acknowledge the AI use in films, but the actors and the artist aren't actually doing the thing. It's a computer doing the thing. So you're taking jobs away from people. You're literally plagiarizing and stealing art. It's just so mind-blowing to me. Like, Angelina Jolie, I read, trained like 7 to 8 months with a opera coach so that she could mediocrely, to me it sounded amazing, but I don't study opera, sing in Maria. And if the actor is not willing to do that, you should get another actor. And if you cannot find an actor that can do it, you need to find an actor that's willing to do it. It's just mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing to me that this level of mediocrity is being celebrated and awarded. Mind-blowing.